Y'all, in my little, sarcastic brain, I just made a funny, okay? Because the title of this live is Poly. Vagal theory, that is. And to my brain, I just made a funny. Can we just take a moment for my funny? Okay. Because in 2025, there's a lot of conversation around polyamory. It's not a new concept, okay? But what is kind of new to people is polyvagal theory. Now, and honestly, in a way, it's new to me, who I've been in my industry of mental health education for 12 years now. And honestly, I never really polyvagal theory until actually I knew about polyamory before I knew about polyvagal theory. And some of that is just because it's still coming out. It's still coming out of its form of being studied and really learning how, what it really does in our bodies. I'm not going to say it's that new. I'm not here to throw statistics at you. I'm here to throw jokes at you. I don't know. Anyways, but I apologize for the tardiness, because not that y'all will ever know this. I'm like 20 minutes late because I haven't signed in to my platforms through my computer in so long that things got disconnected. So in effort to try to get here and get going, because then I have other things after this that I have to do, I was just like, you know what? Let's just do it. Okay, I just got to do it. So we're going to talk a little bit about polyvagal theory. I'm going to give you guys a very nutshell version. In my opinion, what do you really need to know versus if you want to go read all the books that, people pay degrees for, so be it. But it's still not going to be what you need to do in your life to actually apply the information. You'll just be like learning all the information. So I'm going to give you guys like a little bit of a rundown of why today. So a lot of this actually has been coming up because a lot of people, new people, thank you, followers, to my page and have been asking questions about, okay, what can I do like right now? Because mental health is a lot of things. Some of it is about what you do. Some of it is about who you are. But what it really is, okay, what do you do first step to try to like get out of the valley, the depths of despair, of grief, of loss, of whatever it is. And right now, so since a lot of people are reaching, and it's not just any people, it's a lot of men, honestly, reaching out. Now, that could be because, hey, I'm a model, but I think a lot of it is because right now, there is a lot going on in our society, let alone the world, when it comes to learning what mental health is and why it's necessary. And men specifically, in my opinion, given my 12 plus years of working in this industry, they have not necessarily had space to be able to really take care of their mental health. And it's arguably so to say that the same thing for women, because they are nurturers, providers, caretakers, all the same things. But I think it is also the lifestyle for women. Taking care of yourself is more normalized than it is for men. So I give this to, like, when I work with my male clients, there's a lot of different things going on, but I really do start with everyone, with breath work. It takes a lot of practice to try to get your brain to remember to breathe intentionally, okay? Because for the most part, not to say that anyone's not grateful, but we've taken breath for granted. When we're in high stress, when we're bending over to pick up something, I hold my breath all the time. And so when I first started in this industry, I wasn't confident enough to just be like, bam, this is where you got to start. But now I'm like, bam, poly it is. This is where you're going to start. And honestly, I see a lot of men try out, and I mean women try out the poly community. I'm not going to go into that conversation right now. But because I think they're extremely dysregulated, because they think that having multiple sources of affirmation and validation is easier than one. It's not very sustainable. But I'm not here to yuck someone's yum. I'm here to teach y'all the true poly in my world. My world's polyvagal theory. So I'm going to do my best. I have 2 images for y'all, but before I bring those up, I really just want to talk about why. Things are escalating right now. It is October 17th, 2025. I'm on the East Coast, so the time doesn't really matter, but I'm on the East Coast. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm wearing my pink. My mom is a breast cancer survivor, so that is a thing in my world. It's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and this is I mean, something that honestly is probably the one thing we do really need to talk about, because if you haven't noticed, we're kind of in like a domestic violence relationship with the federal government right now. That's just how I see it. I work in my substance abuse experience, domestic violence, cancer, all these, health issues coincide with my addictions and substance abuse background. So again, this is not necessarily about domestic violence per se, but it is about the skills of rebuilding if you are in a situation, if you're preparing to leave a situation that's abusive or not working for you. I don't throw the A word around a whole lot because, to be honest with you, it is very diluted in a lot of sense. If we really want to say like what abuse is, I'm not to take away from anything, but I don't like a lot of misinformation going out there. So if you wonder if you're in an abusive relationship, please Google the abuse wheel, the pattern of, abuse, and really see what resonates. Nonetheless, once you identify the problem, what do you do with it? And so given that everything is escalating right now, tensions are high, whether it be globally, nationally, whatever the case may be, whatever your political views are, there's an escalation, not just in conflict, but in awareness. And awareness is a blessing and a curse, let me tell you, because the transformation that y'all have seen me go throughout the years, it has been more, it's been mental health, but mental health is a lot of different things. But one thing it really is awakening. It's awakening to yourself, to your needs, shifting priorities to you being the priority so you can be a priority for other people and help people if that is your fundamental value, which if you're in my recovery worlds, it's service is a fundamental value. Okay. But escalation brings tension. And if, this concept of the polyvagal theory, I think is a really good visualization, which is a more intellectual form of mindfulness, but it is a visualization around, okay, how do we deal with the tension of growth? So even though growth is a great concept, that shit hurts. As a 6-foot tall woman, I got shin splints in high school. I had no idea what they were. I thought they were just a phenomenon till I actually had them. Growth hurts. This is why I've talked so diligently about pain and like pain being a purpose for your brain to know that you're alive, but it's sucky pain, okay? But growth hurts. And so during this time I can talk very spiritually, woo-woo, whatever the case may be, but this is a generational shift happening. That has nothing to do with a higher power. That has everything to do with just look around. The baby boomers are retiring. Business owners, it's an economic issue. I'm not going to put a label on it, but we're not really looking like, okay, how do we pass this baton given that families are at an all-time high of strain? Tensions are high. So, and then we look at, I have the new referrals that I get, the people who want to work with me are people, but majority women, leaving relationships where they haven't had the space to themselves. And that is a very tough dynamic to deal with, because on both sides, I would say they claim the same thing, but they're leaving relationships to be able to figure out, okay, how can I do this on my own? How can I prioritize my mental health and being around someone that it's challenging to be understood. It's hard to be heard. And this is all causing, it's growth. But if you're not prepared, which most people are not, as much as I've put out there over the years, it's just not finding the people at the time to like be prepared to as much as you can be. And I think hopefully this will find, anyone it needs to. And I have another blog post coming out probably this weekend about, how do you balance the pain and the peace at the same time? And I think the polyvagal theory, for me, in my journey, when I saw this, I was like, oh man, that's super helpful to like help me regulate and understand where I am. So if I can figure out, unfortunately, Instagram, you're not going to get as much of the visual. I'm going to be sharing my screen, I hope. Yep, there we go, because I can figure it out. And I am going to be sharing the visual of the polyvagal chart. Now, if you Google polyvagal bell curve chart, you will be able to see what it is that we are looking at. And if not, if you're patient, I will repost the YouTube of this whole thing shortly after it loads and whatnot. So can I figure out how to zoom in? Oh, that just takes my video away. I'm not sure I want the video away because I think I need to be, you know, a little talking head on the screen. So what I really love about this chart, now this is a simple one. When I was Googling to pulling this up earlier, I found another one I'm going to show you that I really like. No, that's not it either. I wish I could zoom in. You go let me zoom. You go let me zoom. Zoom. Anyways, hopefully y'all can see. You may not be able to read all the different words, but I will help you with that. So the reason I really like this is because the thing about mental health, when I've been working my clients, there's a lot of tough things. You come in and you create this space for yourself, and me as a counselor, as a therapist, I am that space for a long time. But getting the space out back into your life is one of the hardest things to do. You leave my office virtually and or physically, and you go back out into the factors of your stress, the demands of your children, the tasks of your job, the thing, right? And everything, your brain essentially is more trained to stay in the red zone or the yellow zone versus feeling and trusting the green zone. Okay. And the reason I use this one is because the hardest thing is to get people to build new associations. Trauma builds its own associations to protect yourself, to reinforce survival, which is why most people stay in the red zone. I stayed in the red zone a lot of the times. I would disassociate. My brain would be at capacity, and I wouldn't be able to even do or promote action, let alone for my body to actually systemically function. Okay. So if you see in this red zone, in the freeze zone, we've all generally heard fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. All of those stress responses are the yellow and the red. But one of my biggest things here, and hopefully it won't zoom in, but if y'all can see this over here in this corner to the left, in the red zone, it says I can't, and in the yellow zone, it says I can. This is a great depiction of the what one thing I think hopefully we all do in real life that emulates this photo. Since no one's here to answer me, here's the answer. The answer is the yellow light. Do you go or do you stop? Okay, now this particular concept is going to be inverted. For the purpose of your central nervous system, you do want to slow down for the yellow light. And this is where I tell people, go ahead and this while driving. You practice your breath work intentionally while driving, because for the most part, not only is it going to keep you safe, it's gonna relate so much to the circumstances of just stop at the yellow light. Don't try to rush through, even if you're late, because at the end of the day, that's what escalates and keeps training your brain fast. And then you get your speeding ticket. Okay? Because I've had a couple of those in my day. I grew up in the Northeast, so driving is a sport. It really is. And I had to start. I started my journey when I was driving. I was driving 35 minutes to my office. I was coming out of, 6-7 sessions a day, sitting all day, and I was like mentally just bleh. I was like teetering. Could I function? Yes. But could my body calm down? No. And then I realized, okay, let's work smarter, not harder. What is it that I'm already doing where I could, and mind you, I didn't have this chart when I first started my journey. So y'all getting a little extra treat here. So when I first started my journey, my biggest issue and why I teach so many this concept through the relationship with food is because my office was right next to an Arby's. And if you know anything about me, and if not, you're about to find out, cheese is my favorite food. So mozzarella sticks and Arby's, they're not great. You can preach to me all day that, the processed food are going to kill you. I ain't dead. But I had to work around my brain craving fuel, desiring something more than just driving home to do something with. Okay. And because when you work my program, you're going to hear me talk more about is that your body naturally copes. Your brain naturally copes for you. The biggest problem I found in the years of observing people is, how do you beat your brain to the punch? Like, how do you make sure you cut it off before it cuts you, and cutting corners to your, whether it's your goals, your desires, your dreams, whatever. Now, if you really want it, and if I really wanted the mozzarella sticks, I would get it. But I had to start there because that was the pattern that I was trying to break. I was trying to break being sitting all day, going straight to just eating whatever I wanted and not necessarily what I needed. And so my point in saying this is, sometimes I needed to sit at that light and look to my right and be like, oh, there's Arby's. And because I've already passed the intro, I'm not going to like go make a turnaround. And there's some days where I drove right into the parking lot before I even got to the light. And if the light, hopefully this metaphor tracks, but what I'm saying is that there is a point to stopping at the yellow. There is a point to learning where the yellow in your body. So when you can feel the tightness in your chest, when you can feel, for me right now, because I'm talking so much, it's sweating. I'm like, almost like, as much as I want to take the sweater off, it's 68 degrees outside, but I'm hot. And because I'm generating energy and, power towards speaking about this. Okay. So I want y'all to notice the green. Green, I think a lot of people, when I posted this on my story this week, I got some people who messaged me with a sad face. And it was a realization for them. You know what? The majority of my life, I was born into the yellow. That is a very real thing. We are often born into chaos. Not often, pretty much all are, to some degree. And I've not met even a financially privileged person that did not have some degree of chaos in their life that caused them to not have their emotional needs met. And so I do think it's a sad reality. If this is the first time you're seeing this, you might need to grieve a little bit that, you know what, yes, the idea of being in the green and being born into the green or being able to live in the green is great, but it's not what makes you. It's not. This yellow area is where choice lies. You actually, if you can see this, you see rage, anger, irritation, frustration. Those are your indicators that, let me lay off the gas a little bit. Let me lay off just the gas just a little bit so I can bring back all of these parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system processes that actually help you function. Like critical thinking, like your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex will shut down if it gets into the red, but breath work will bring that back down to the yellow. And so when we're really using this as a intellectual mindfulness tool, I want y'all to look at that indicator of what can you do. You're going to, over the course of you living your life, you're going to have many patterns that you have to pay attention to, and you can't do them all at once, or you literally send yourself into the red zone. Okay. So for example, one just happened to me the other day where my mom came to me with a problem and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do that, because it put me in a place of conflict. And I was also losing something, essentially the pet sitter. Yeah, I was like disappointed in the circumstance. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't accuse or confront someone without data, like, to do that. And then I realized, after I was like unpacking my bag, and I was like, Sarah, you can't is an indicator for you. I'm, for further my journey, that I have certain words that are my trigger words that make me pay attention to, oh, this might be a pattern here that I need to address, and can't is one of them. So when I say I can't do something, I have to really examine whether that is true. Is that true? Can I not technically do it? Do I need to learn a skill to do it? Or is it just inappropriate? And after the last couple of days of me considering, it's not like it sent me into a spin out or a crash out, but that's because I've also generated a lot of space in myself to do this work before I even get to the red anymore. But it did take me a couple of days. I'm like, well, what can I do? What can I say to this person? Or what should I say? And sometimes you have to consider and think, and there's another acronym there that I love. Is it thoughtful to tell someone? Is it something I do need to say to a person now? And yeah, and so, but if what's underlying this processing and this thinking is whether or not I have slowed down and I have examined whether or not it's an appropriate thing. If I'm in the red zone, you're still thinking, but you're not thinking long term. You're not thinking of the impact of like, okay, well, if I do tell this person I'm not going to hire them again, then is it something that is going to, if me telling them the truth as to why I'm not going to hire them, is that helpful for them? Is that going to bring them to some degree of insight? And there's no true way that I'm going to know that. But if I can't go through that checklist because my brain is in the red, then I'm not really being mindful and practicing it to the degree that I can be. And that's what brought me to this chart. It was, I guess, God showed, like, he brought me someone that I educated from the get-go, and it ended up being a mirror moment for myself. Okay. So that's my first thing. It looks like the stoplight. It looks like the thing that we do all the time. So I just think there's a lot of relatability to this chart. It's going to teach you a lot, and a lot of it you may not know, and that's fine. But what I do need you to know is that it's impactful. And if you are in a chronic state of reactivity, so these are some indicators of, okay, why is this important? For me, what my biggest indicator was, if someone spoke to me and I'm like in my head because I'm ruminating. I'm not just thinking, I'm ruminating over something that I don't have an answer to, and it's obsessive and I would startle easily. If you're startling easily, you're probably in the red more than you're in the yellow and in the green. So the green, coming back to this green, you do want to have spaces of green in your life, but they're not going to be throughout the day. I mean, just be realistic with yourselves. We go to work. We're in customer service roles. We're in parent roles. Whenever I was nannying and doing this, I'm not always in a green role, even as a therapist in the moment and listening to someone. I'm listening, and this is where I had to be mindful in all aspects of my life in order for me to conserve my energy for the end of the day and make a healthy decision about how I go home or how I can prepare for the next day to have my meal prep. So I know my body's looking for fuel, and I don't just go eat something that's, high in, processed saturated fats and all the jimbo jambo that we talk about in nutrition. So this is what really made me pay attention to how it is. You know what, in Instagram, let me see if I can turn this around for y'all so you can see that we're actually looking at something. That's a little bit better. I probably should have done that. I'm just going to hold can y'all see? Okay, no, it's down low enough. So when we look at this chart, we're really, don't fall. We're really wanting to look at what we can do. If you guys are more in the red, then that's okay. But let's get on some breath work, because all of these functions in your body are the things that are causing perimenopause. They're causing the anxiety, panic attacks. Your body gets dysregulated just because your mind is so focused on the outside world. So when we're really talking about chronic disease, type 3 diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS, all of the trendy, healthcare problems we're going through right now, this now becomes some of the solution. I'm not going to say the full solution, because sometimes people do need medications to help regulate, but you should not need a medication for the rest of your life. If y'all think about this, right? Caveman era did not have penicillin. That's probably what took us out too. Now, penicillin, something like that but they had natural remedies. When you start to learn more about your body and what it can do, your mind and what it can heal, then you start to unlock more energy, and then we got to talk about what you do with it. But for the purpose of this talk, we are just going to go with the polyvagal. Now, because due to time, I'm going to switch to this other visual because I just like, I like its aesthetics a little bit better. I start with the bland because, the basics we just need to learn. So here we go. It's a mountain, y'all. So this is a common metaphor that I use for people, and I'm going to give it to y'all here today. When you're working on your mental health, you're starting typically at the top of the mountain. You should not try to jump off the mountain. You should not try to air glide off the mountain if you're not a trained professional. You should not try to mountain climb off the mountain if you do not know how to mountain climb. You should walk slowly. You should walk slowly down the mountain. You should retrace your steps as to how you got up there. And I love this metaphor of the mountain just because I talk about it so much, is that, and why I'm saying this is because, newsflash, your brain is built to think, to go from point A to point B. It's an efficient computing system. That's why AI is so helpful these days. Let me turn this around. Is that it is, first of all, our brains built AI, but we built it, and it's coming to be and giving you guys more of this information, but it's not helping you actually apply it and remember, because to remember that your brain is all or nothing, it's going to be like, oh, you just got to get down. What's the fastest way to get down? Run, bike, jump? No, don't do the fast thing, because then you're going to start tumbling down the mountain. You're going to really kind of probably cause yourself more trauma and damage and disbelief in that this stuff doesn't work because you're trying to force it. So I'll put this here. The the culture that we live in, right, especially on social media. If you're watching this and you spend a certain amount of time on social media, that's okay. But there's all these trendy concepts and people trying to get your attention that, and I've struggled with it, because my content is not super hook providing, other than the fact that, okay, cool, my hair's nice today, which is pretty nice. But it is, everything's trying to get your attention. And one of the trends that's out there is slow mornings. I think that's absolutely a very realistic concept for some people, but you're not built that way yet. So you can take one slow morning and then your brain thinks, oh, check, done, we're off the list. But realistically, you need more slow mornings, and that doesn't always start in the morning. Get some more light for this side. That slow mornings don't start in the morning. Sorry, they start in the evenings. They start with your sleep hygiene. They start with you making sure that you set yourself up for success in the morning. And because people are usually depressed and anxious and all the things, they're not thinking about the morning because their brain literally cannot plan that far ahead. Okay, so your sleep hygiene, which I have a sleep hygiene routine recommendation on my website, and it's at the very top of the website on every page, is that if you want, I tell everyone, you got to start with your sleep. And if you're using a medication to sleep, sometimes that can be problematic. Okay, this is not working. I know y'all can see me on here, but Instagram is just kind of dark. So the sleep hygiene process in itself is probably the harder thing that you need to focus on. So bringing this metaphor of not jumping down and, trying to race down the mountain, is just start with your sleep. Just start with that routine as much as possible. And you might have other routines that pop up that you need to focus on, but anything's better than nothing for you to start on trying to slow down your life. And you have to, that's like, okay, another metaphor, right? Or analogy. I just came back from sea and we're driving through the mountains, and the Blue Ridge Mountains are full, but they're also, and unfortunately because the last year with Hurricane Helene that wiped out a lot of Western North Carolina and the roads in Western North Carolina, that the trucks have been severely displaced in going through these mountains. So we're on this trip back and we get rerouted through this 1-lane road, or 2-lane road technically, but one on each side. And we're driving next to these tractor trailers. And if you have to pass one, and you start seeing all of these runaway truck ramps. If anyone's anxiety goes up when you see one of those, then welcome to the club, because I'm like, uh-oh. But here's the thing. I lived a lot of lives. Quick story. I used to have my CDLs in college with a passenger endorsement because I drove for the student transit system at East Carolina University. Woo-woo, go Pirates. However, when you do something like that, you learn a lot about the rules of the road because you're in a bigger vehicle. You can't do as much as my, little Nissan can. And it dawned on me, like, these trucks can't lay on. They cannot just put their foot on the brakes and ride the brakes down these hills. They are usually manual shift. Now, the buses I drove were not manual shift, but most tractor trailers are manual shift because you have to use your engine to slow down, to downshift. because those brakes, and usually they're air brakes, but there are still brake pads, they will burn out, cause a fire, heat, friction. So that's why those runaway ramps are there, is that if by some point someone's brake system fails because of just the natural physics and the inertia of going down a hill, they have to have a place to be able to stop. And I think generally as human beings, you need to build those into your life. What are the accountability systems? If you don't have breath work, where are you going to take your break? Where are you going to slow yourself down and check back in with your body and be able to take that next step down from the red to the yellow? And then hopefully, now I would say, honestly, these days, especially if you work in healthcare, if you work in the legal system, if you work in the federal government, take your time, but train your brain to stay generally in the yellow, not always in the green. Because if you train your brain to be in the green, well, honestly, you're just going to end up being mean. What, Sarah? Why? Well, first of all, that was a nice rhyme. Thank you, Sarah. But why would you be mean in the green? Especially when it's saying social engagement, all this. Well, because people don't stress you out. People are going to bring you out of the green and into the yellow because of them not doing this. And then you can share this video with them and hopefully they'll be in a better place. But I do not teach my clients to ever fully just be. Now, I do have to teach them how the green feels so they know how they can get back to it. But the green is not realistic to be in all the time. You need to be able to discern, okay, I can feel my fight or flight increasing. I can feel it decreasing. I know generally, no, I'm in the yellow, because if I can even think about this chart, then more than likely you're in the yellow. Just trying to place yourself in the different stages of like escalation. And social environments are very escalating, especially the fun ones. Y'all paint this picture of going out to, like, it's homecoming season. Fun fact about Sarah, I've never been to a homecoming because unfortunately I've already done my crowds. I did my crowds at an early age. I did my football games. I did that. And maybe one day I will go back. But I haven't, just because I've been focused on other things, learning Vagal Theory. But crowds are noisy. They escalate. And our brain protects us from that. Think of this analogy. Our new iPhones, anytime a noise happens in the background, it buffers it for you. There's no getting distracted from outside noises with technology anymore, which is it's a good thing, but it's also a harmful thing, because if we guys don't learn how to regulate yourself, then silence is going to be violence for yourself. Silence is violence already for an interpersonal diplomatic approach. But silence and not being able to sit in your own silence, not being able to like turn the noise off, that's one of the biggest issues that I work with people on. So the general public can't do that because they think being in the green, being in the soft life, being in my soft girl era or soft man era, then social engagements will not be fun for you anymore. You will be mean, because if someone comes and tries to quote unquote disturb your peace, you don't have the communication skills for it. And I'm saying that not to attack anyone. I'm saying it because it was my personal experience. I tried to be the strong green person for everyone. And when I was not aware about where my stress level was, I became passive aggressive and I would nip. And it's a very real kind of like, and I'd bite back. But I'd be like, and I still do it sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. And there is a purpose to it. But I also need to be able to be like, look, this situation is extremely activating for me. I just need to take a moment. So this is what I teach and model for my clients of like, if you're in a situation where, yes, you get to the red very quickly, and the red is, okay, a full defense system, and you start doing things that are out of character, you start laying hands on people, you start throwing stuff, you start doing all this, then that's not productive. You're not communicating effectively. So we really learn communication, not only when it's modeled healthily to us, but do I have my sarcastic moments where I make a joke inappropriately? Yeah, that's still there. But I also know well enough, and I've trained my brain to have access to this new narrative, which is like, look, I really want to have this conversation with you, but can you give me 3 minutes? And a lot of people naturally do this. You get couples who talk about like, oh, well, my partner walks away when they're mad and we never finish an argument. absolutely a real thing. The problem is that because that is just a natural way of coping, your brain is removing yourself from the situation of stress, that there's no resolution. And very often that I find in my practice that most of the people who come to therapy, they've never been modeled resolution. They've never been modeled recovery. And that's how this whole hopefully fashion model of thing makes sense to why this therapist is talking about mental health and a model at the same time, is because it's about modeling what you can do and learning what you don't know, and showing people that a lot of mental health is just the way you communicate to yourself, and in turn how you project that communication out to other people. So I think that's about all I can really dissect for this particular episode today, because it's 35 minutes long. Take a look at it. I will hopefully post I'll keep these tabs open, the links, and I'll post them in the comments of this this video. But hopefully that was a good rundown of how to consider how this shows up in your life, and hopefully at least one thing that you can do about it. So I'm really practicing on not repeating myself, so I'm going to leave it there. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I will do my very best to get to them as quickly as possible. And I hope you guys, really, when I say stay strong, it is be intentionally strong, not just default to resilience and exhaust yourselves. It's really just remember this is a generational shift going on that are coming, and it's not just death, unfortunately, but we're starting to see that we have a generation of pioneers for this, for our millennial generation and the Gen Zers, who they set the tone for how us as society, not just the politicians, but us as society and individuals have to collectively work on ourselves to come together and build community in times of crisis. And so unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of losses. And some of them are just going to be the older generation meeting their material world deadlines. Bodies don't last forever. And so I pray for those who are going through those losses. And if you need resources or just a space, let me know. I'll do my best to get my time able to do that for y'all. But if it's also a loss in your health starts to become an issue, but it might be the time to start cleaning out and building some capacity so your body can heal. I'm seeing a lot of people, go through cancer diagnoses, stress and sugar, cancer's, last meal. So it's a stressful thing to go through, but it's also a really good opportunity to start doing the work that doesn't come with just filling out someone else's spreadsheet for the week. And I want you guys to realize, and part of the reason the last thing I will say about that last image of the mountain is that nature already does this for us. We as humans have gotten stuck in the routine of material world things and not being able to sit with nature as a grounding skill. So as a Gen Zer would say, go touch some grass this weekend, really connect with it, and consider how that the tip of the mountain is mostly ice and the grass is in the yellow and in the green. And if you really can get to some water, water is healing. And that's why your therapist here is a water sign. Actually, I've got 2 water signs. I got 2. So we're naturally, I guess, a healer. And now that I know how to make, it's time to teach y'all. So have a great weekend. Please be safe, make good choices. That's what my Spanish teacher used to tell me in high school. Be safe and be smart. And I will see y'all when I see you. Got some new stuff coming out soon. And I'm excited to share with y'all. Have a good weekend.